Welcome to my first episode of I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence, Inc., a podcast dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence through the powerful stories of survivors. Hello, everyone, and I'm Sean Bryan, founder and CEO of I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence, Inc. And today, I'm joined by my incredible co-host, Michelle DiBernardo. Together, we're bringing you a series of conversations with individuals who have lived through the unimaginable and have come out on the other side stronger, more resilient, and ready to share their journeys. This series is so much more than just a conversation, it's a movement. By amplifying these voices, we hope to provide hope, build understanding, and break the silence surrounding domestic violence. We believe that sharing survivor stories is critical in dismantling the stigma, offering support, and empowering those who are still in the shadows, feeling alone.
In today's episode, we'll dive into the importance of survivor stories and discuss why raising awareness about domestic violence is so vital for creating a world where no one has to suffer in silence. We hope that by listening to these stories, you'll not only learn more about the complexity of domestic violence, but also find ways you can help, whether that's offering a listening ear, supporting a loved one, or advocating for change in your own community. So sit back, listen with an open heart, and join us in this important conversation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence podcast. This is our first episode, and I just want to introduce my co host, Michelle D. Bernardo. And today, Michelle is going to be the first one who's going to answer my question, which is going to be simply as follows. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became involved in sharing your story as a survivor of domestic violence?
Yeah. So we had met at an event a couple weeks ago and we had discussed, the possibility of, starting a podcast. And you told me about your foundation, and we got into talking about our different stories and realizing that we were both survivors. And I mean, my experience or lifestyle has been filled with domestic violence in many ways, but I think the story that I'll kind of touch on is the one where I was left for dead, October 31st, 2014. But that wasn't how it started. I was together with a guy for 5 years, and he treated me like a princess per se. um, but he was very jealous. So, it started with the first few months were perfect, like every relationship, right? And then we would go out and somebody might call me pretty or whatever, and, a slip of the fist right into the eye. So I became very good at, covering up with tattoo makeup or whatever, covering the black eyes for sure. And he got me back into working in the entertainment industry because I've worked in the entertainment industry on and off since I was 12. And he really pushed me. So like it was encouraging, it was inspiring. But the thing is when you work with a lot of male photographers or photographers in general, right? They encourage you because they want you to look good in front of the camera. So they might make comments like, "You're gorgeous, you're pretty, you're beautiful, you're hot, ooh, you're on fire," or whatever. And, he was that jealous boyfriend in the background that it didn't make sense to me because he pushed me, um, and, I really loved him. Like, I mean, I isolated myself from the world, and, it started as a couple black eyes, and it went from black eyes to choking to, I mean, it came to a point where one time he locked me in the basement. I actually put a drill to his head, like a drill to his head to like defend myself one time. And this guy was, he started out as like 140 pounds. He ended up 230 pounds of just like solid muscle. Um, he'd throw me choking. I mean, he loved choking me. And it went on for years, and I knew I had to get out, and there was times that people would call the cops, and the cops would come and they'd say, "Oh, we got to take you both," even though I'd be bloody, bruised, chipped tooth, but like when he picked me up and threw me, I might have grabbed him and scratched his face, so he'd have like one scratch mark compared to me being beaten and bloody. And that's just the way the justice system is here in New York. As they say they got to take you both. And I remember my mom coming for one of them and looking at me, and she looked at the cop and she said, like, "What the F?" Like, what, you wonder why people stay in these situations. And eventually it came to a point where my kids kind of brought it up at school. And like this is going to be like a hard thing to even talk about, and not that many people even know, but they got CPS involved, and I was like, "Oh hell no." Like they're like, "Well, this is neglect because you're being abused." And I didn't really realize it was affecting my kids because really he'd fight with me on the weekends. My kids would be at their dad's house on the weekends, and he wasn't hitting them, you know what I mean? He was hitting me. Um, but it came to the point where, they got involved, and they were like, "It's your kids or him." And there was no doubt in my mind what I chose, was my kids. So um, finally, after time, after time, after time, you try to leave a narcissist, right? It doesn't always work. Um, that was my choice. I had to go. Like it was done. It was over. It was all over. And that was in May of 2014 after us being together 5 years. And I knew, before that he had done some nasty things to his child's mother. Like, I mean, he locked her in a room, cut her hair off. Um, I actually broke out of a window one time in the middle of winter. I jumped out of it, ran down the street because my mom lived down the street from me in the wintertime in a t-shirt. In a t-shirt. No shoes, no nothing. Ran in the snow, to my mother's house. He locked me in the basement. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. There was just so many things. But like I said, when CPS got involved, I was like, "Oh, there's no way he's got to go." So I did get out. It was hard, very hard. And I was scared because he used to threaten to kill me, if I ever saw somebody again or anything. And then I saw him out on Halloween of 2014. And I saw him at the bar, and I tried acting like I didn't know him, like I was trying to heal and recover from this. And he came up to me like I was just behind a couple and like totally ignored him, and he took my head and he slammed it on the cement, like slammed it on the cement in the bar. And they threw him out, and I was crying and crying, and I was like, "He's going to come to my house. He's going to come to my house. He's going to come to my house." Nobody listened to me. I got dropped off, that night. I didn't drive or anything. My kids were gone for the weekend. And he came banging on the door, right? And he's banging on the front door, banging on the front door. I was like, oh, whatever. I put a chair in front of the front door. I figured, he can't get in, right? Um, he ended up kicking the back door into the garage, and then he got in. There's like another door, but it was like hard to like, there was like a railing, and then there was the door, and that door was pretty sturdy. He tried kicking that, kicking that, kicking that. He couldn't get in. I fell asleep. I was drunk. Not gonna lie. It was, Halloween. I went out and had some drinks. It was the first time in a long time because I was scared to go out for so long, even though we were broken up since May. And eventually he went to the front door and he kept kicking and kicking and kicking. He got in. I basically ran to the front door. He mopped the floor with me, like 100% mopped the floor with me from here to there. He ended up in the bathroom, choking me, throwing me back, throwing me back. I just kept getting back up. I'm like, please, please, just leave me alone, please. Like, and he just kept throwing me back into the tub. And eventually the bathroom was down the hall from like my bedroom, and there was like a trunk at the end of my bed, and he choked me and choked me and choked me. And I woke up the next day, my front door was open, like, because it was kicked in. There, it wasn't like you're not able to close it anymore. And there was a lot of damage to like the garage door. I had blood vessels all broken in my eye. I had a chipped tooth, black eye, bruised, basically head to toe. I mean, my toenails were chipped. Like, it was bad. And I went to just cover it up, like, okay, let me put some makeup on. I was so used to it. And then I went to an event. I was like at a craft fair or whatever, and I was supposed to go to the SU game with my father afterwards. And this old lady, she looked at me and she goes, "A man did that to you, didn't he?" And I was like, yeah, I broke down. It's an old lady I don't even know. And I ended up calling my dad because I knew he was going to see me. He knew he was going to see the chipped tooth. You couldn't cover up the blood vessels in the eye. That was like the worst I had ever been. And I called my dad, and he basically said, If you don't go to the police, I'm going to do something really bad." And I didn't want my dad to go to jail. So I went to the police. He was facing 30 years and he got 14 months. And um, the cops used to, and the DA used to let him call me. Like, he would call me every freaking day from jail, every day. Like, he had a job at the jail. And so he would still call me, and I'd call the DA. I'd tell him. Anyways, long story short, that was that. And about 10 months after he got out of jail, my daughter called me. She had just got home from school, and like, I mean, there was tons of cops outside of my house, like tons of cops. And so I rush home. Turns out he did it to another girl, and his last known address was my address. Um, and then after that, he ended up with another girl who lived above one of my like best friends growing up, and she used to hear him beat the out of her all the time. And yeah, I mean, the restraining order just finally expired, I don't know, a year or two ago, and he's tried to reach out. Um, my brother's friends with him, just crazy. But I mean, that was like the worst of my worst, and I think once you accept it, you think they're going to change. You think, you know, that they're gonna get better. And I mean, he eventually told me, he was like, "I literally, like, I'm always gonna hate you," you know? And I was just so in love with him. I don't know why. Like, I just got so used to it. And definitely isolated the crap out of myself. But like I said, when it came to that point where like it was my kids or him, there was
Right.
there's no doubt. So
Right.
that's how we kind of linked up, and we decided to start this podcast and, help others on this journey, because it's it's a crazy world out there, and it's happening not just to women, it happens to men. And I think just like, society accepts it more, and the justice system, doesn't do what they're supposed to. So people like us
Right.
have to stand up, and, with your foundation helping people, it's great. And so that's just a little bit on my part of the story, and I don't think I've
Well,
really ever told anybody really public, so this is gonna be
right,
I mean, everybody knows, but you know what I mean? Like, this is
right.
definitely gonna go public, so
Yeah, the thing is, in a sense, you know, I think that first I want to say thank you as a co-host for coming on and being part of this foundation because you are a director with the foundation, and it's really important that you eventually face your fears, which we're all fearful of talking about what happened, maybe because of embarrassment or what people will think of us. But Michelle, you took a big step today coming on as a co-host of the show and telling your story because your story is going to speak volume with people, other women and men that have been through similar situations that don't want to come out. And eventually they'll hear you and say, oh my God, listen to this woman, what she's been through and how long it's been, and she's just coming out. You know, there comes a time in our lives, Michelle, that we have to just walk through the door, and that door is leaving everything behind us, although we will never forget, but we can't fixate on the past because that was what will destroy our life and having other relationships. Some people have been married 3, 4 times I've interviewed, and none of it never worked. And then the fifth one or the fourth one, they're in love and they found their soulmate. So a lot of women and men just close the door and just end up being alone and lonely. And our message from our foundation here is, you know, don't let anyone take the fury out of your life. And that's what he wanted to do. He was jealous. He said basically in his mind to me as the founder, and I've interviewed over, you know, 2, 3 thousand people, that he's saying, well, if nobody, you know, if anyone else out there is going to try to have you and I can't have you, then no one's going to have you. So
Yep.
he's probably trying to kill you or scare you so you wouldn't be involved with anyone else but him. So it's all about intimidation. So thank you for sharing. And I know this is going to hit home with so many people, thousands of people that are going to be watching our podcast. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, so now I'm gonna turn the tables because I know you're a survivor, but
Okay,
also the foundation. So we're gonna go back and forth on this episode. So our
great.
audience can connect with us and you know they can know a little bit about us and why we're here. So
Right.
why do you think it's important to share stories of survival in the context of domestic violence?
That's a great question. It's a loaded question, but I can handle it. I mean, we've only got so much time, so I've got
Yeah.
plenty of information to talk about on this subject. So, first and foremost, as a founder of domestic violence and living in Boston, experiencing a lot of domestic violence when I was young, um, the most important part about sharing your stories of survival, and it necessarily doesn't need to be with somebody that's experienced domestic violence. Sometimes children watch mom and dad beat each other up, or you know, whatever the case may be, girlfriends and boyfriends that watch their friends get beat up and terrible things happen. I mean, I've been through so many different situations myself with my foundation and outside the foundation. I've been doing this for 20 years. And officially, I launched the I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence Inc. out of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the home office. It's a national company. We're all over the internet. And I have a LinkedIn that I am basically a very loud voice for injustices. So, with all that being said, I'm going to focus on answering the question. So, the reason it's important to share your story is so people can reflect nationally and globally, because this podcast is going to be launched nationally and globally. It's going to ripple, and people are going to be able to see what we're doing and what we're talking about. And the reason it's important, again, I'll reiterate, it's very important to share your story. So some people may hear your individual story. Everyone's story is different, although there's always the similarity of domestic violence, control, coercive control, you know, financial exploitation. You know, a lot of people get themselves involved, older men with younger women, they financially exploit, and vice versa. So, whatever story you have, how bad it is, how ugly it is, how just, you know, just hellacious it is. You need to share the story because somebody out there may be considering suicide, maybe considering, you know, ending their life with their family and giving their kids back to the abuser. Whatever the case may be, your story Michelle, is going to touch a lot of men and women when they hear it. They're like, oh my God, that story is so similar to yours. And I want you to remember me telling you this, Michelle, because when I told my story as a man, I had 6,000 people in my first episode on my colleague's podcast direct DM me on my my Outlook and my Gmail, and it was overwhelming. It took me 6 months to answer most of them, and they all said, "Oh my God, like I'm a man. I never reported it. I never came out about it because I figured I'm a man and they're a woman, and they always put the man in jail. So that's why the percentage is like 80% abusers are men and 20% are women. So that's one reason why it's important that for men to report the abuse, because again, if you don't report it, you're just letting a loose cannon back on the street, and he's going to hook up with somebody else, he or she, and
Yeah.
she's going to terrorize, or he's going to terrorize someone else. And then when law enforcement goes in the computer and runs his, they bob him, border probation, BOP, there's nothing there. So there's no history.
Right.
So we have to do ourselves, one better, because there's other victims that are going to encounter what your ex did and what my ex did. So we can't let them get away with it. And although we're bad at beat down and black eyes, and for me, I'm not going to get into it too much because I have PTSD and I don't like to reflect and think about it because I'm empowering it. If you keep talking about it or being about it, you're empowering it, and you need to stop empowering the abuse and let it go. I'm not saying to forget ever, because we're never going to forget, right?
Right.
But we need to move on. And part of the moving on process is getting the proper psychotherapy. If you need to go to get PTSD counseling, whatever, you don't have to do it forever. Some do, but for me, I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep doing it, because I feel like I'm healed somewhat, but I always will have the traumatic event in August of 2019 where I almost lost my life. But from the direct actions of my ex, I literally lost 2 pints of blood. I went into shock. I literally flatlined. I died. They brought me back. The paramedics brought me back in an ambulance. I ended up in the trauma center. I was in surgery for 6 hours. I had hydroencephalitis. I lost vision in both eyes, and then one eye came back. And miracle, 9 months later, the other one came back. Had to learn how to speak, how to walk, and how to talk. And I lost a third of my memory of all my childhood memories. I didn't remember a lot of things, so I had to go to memory and speech therapy, physical therapy. So when I tell you that I'm a miracle here talking on this podcast, I literally am. I shouldn't be here. How I lived, losing 2 pints of blood, flatlining for 4 minutes. They actually going to call it that, I was deceased, but I came back. So all I'm saying is I'm here. I'm living proof that I'm going to fight the fight. I'm going to tell my story. And anyone who needs help, please reach out to our foundation, because, again, the name of it is I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence, Inc. in Las Vegas, Nevada. Our toll-free hotline is 702-323-4477, 702-323-4477. And our website is I am a survivor of domestic violence.org. And so please, just remember this information. It'll be in the credits at the end of the podcast. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
So we're going to turn the tide, and we're going to go with your next question, Michelle.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges you faced when deciding to share your story publicly? I know that, going public, like, I mean, just think of how long it's been. I mean, you met me at a function and we just started talking, and, we were chewing the fat, as they say. And I told you about myself and my history, and then you decided to do the show. And now that we're doing the show, you're going to have to come out and talk about it openly, publicly. So how does that feel for you? Like, do you think that it's going to give you some, I don't know, release of letting go, or is it gonna, are you gonna be nervous? Like, how do you really feel? I mean, I'd like to
Right.
know.
Um, I mean, I guess in a way it's almost embarrassing because everybody knows me as like a very strong woman, like, and what I've became from it, like before I was just like, I was strong before, but obviously I was isolated and, manipulated and so many things happened. Is there going to be backlash? Like people are going to be like, oh my God, like CPS was involved. But at the same time, like I chose my kids over that man. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
I'm hoping that my story will empower and inspire other women that are in the situation to make that choice. Like, no
right,
man is worth your kids. No man or no woman is worth your kids.
right,
Nobody
right,
worth life, man or woman or whatever, cat, dog, like nobody is worth your
you're
life.
right. You get that's a great point. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just a little embarrassing, and hopefully there's not backlash or people bringing up the past, but at the same time, the point is to empower and inspire others. It happened this year, and I told you, like, I'm like, literally, like, it was a couple weeks ago was my 10-year anniversary from my, Left for Dead. So, I mean, it's changed me, like you said, like PTSD is a real thing and it affects your new relationships and your new
It
friends.
does. It does. I'm glad you said that. I'm just going to jump in from it. So, how many people like have you probably met that maybe you might have want to go to dinner or have a relationship or think about just hanging out, and you're like, I just can't go there because I'm just not ready. I don't want to. And it really is a curse in a sense that it's like this shadow that overlooks you. It's like a periphery. You ever have peripheral vision, and you look left to the right, you feel like someone's watching, and it's not really like that, but it's in the sense in your mind it is. It's like you got this monkey on your back thinking about, oh my God, if I get involved, am I going to go down that same road again? What's this guy like? Oh my God, do I have to do a background check? So it changes our perception of
Yeah.
being somewhat normal to abnormal behaviors. And unfortunately, we have to live proactively because of what happened to us,
Hmm.
and so it doesn't happen to us again, because it's very often, and I'm just letting everyone know watching the show, very often, okay, that when you've been abused, you'll navigate to another abuser and end up in another abusive relationship. I think the
Yep.
percentage is 60 to 70%. It's scary,
Oh,
really.
it is. And it's like, because, like, for me, for instance, I always feel like I'm going to save everybody. And that's how my family has always been. It's like we take in the strays, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah.
So it's
And
definitely changed. Like, I have been engaged since, but I literally, um, it was a long time ago, but I tend to date men that are long distance now, like 4 hours away. Um, I like my space. I like it quiet. It's very hard for me to let people in because I'm
of
scared.
course,
And like your mind is still chaotic with the PTSD. So it's like
yeah.
I just bury myself and focus on working and working and working and working and staying busy. It's probably not the healthiest, thing to do, but it's definitely it's changed me. Yeah, it's definitely changed me. It's
Okay.
hard.
Okay, great. So
I,
thank you for answering.
yeah, now I'm gonna turn it back on you. So how do you hope that your story will impact those who are listening, especially those who may be currently experiencing domestic violence?
Again, this is a hard one, because I could talk for 20 minutes, but we don't have 20 minutes because we only have so much time. So let me get into it
Yeah.
quickly. Um, to reflect from the other questions I already answered. Um, so, for those of you that are listening to my story, and this is basically directed directly at men, please do not go with the stereotype and just say, "Well, I'm not going to do it because I'm a man. I'm the bigger guy. She's little, even though she's the one that's the abuser. She comes at me with a knife and stab me, or hit me with the ball or broke it over my head. If I go there, like you said, they'll both end up going. The kids go to, human, what do they call it? Child
Foster
services, locked up. Yeah, it's terrible. Sometimes you're in court, you don't get out for 3-4 months because they're backed up with case log. Your mortgages, bills, your house will be cars repossessed. I mean, crazy stuff can happen because you get locked up. and it's all over domestic violence and not acknowledging that you're with an abuser and you need to get out. So
Yeah.
for women, now I'm going to direct it to women. So for women that are in an abusive relationship, I think it's really important to talk about it because men do the coercive control. Don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to your friends. You shouldn't be telling people certain things, which is true in some instances. But, when you're getting abused and you're coming out of the house with black eye, you're going out into public shopping, people ask you, what happened? Oh my God, you got a black eye. And you say, oh, I fell down the stairs. How many times can you tell that story as a woman before people are going to start saying she's lying, he's an abuser? So I think the real kind of key answer to this question is, again, you know, for those of you who are listening to our stories, I think that we are impacting your mental state in the sense that maybe I should, and maybe you should, maybe you're saying to yourself, maybe I should. Well, we're saying, yes, you should report it. Don't go down the road, well, it's the first time, it's not going to happen again, or it's only when he drinks, or it's only when he goes out partying with his friends and he comes home late. And, there's none of this. Abuse is not tolerated. You don't have to tolerate it. It's not normal. It's just, oh, I got to give him a pass because he was drinking, she was drinking. She's got a drinking problem. She's not really an alcoholic. She's AKA a functioning. Listen, I don't want to hear the word functioning alcoholic. An alcoholic, functioning or not, is an alcoholic. And if they get violent and they start battering you, if there's kids in the house, you don't know what's going to, you could end up killed. He could end up, he or she could end up killing the kids. What about when they're driving? They could crash the car on the way home from the bar. You just can't have that type of activity in your life as an adult, especially with a family. If you're starting a family, if you just got recently married, a lot of times in relationships, I find from the reports I've taken, and it's hundreds and over thousands, but there's a few hundred I've taken with this situation where they marry a man and he's like Prince Charles. He's like a nice guy, whatever. He's like a prince. And
Yeah.
the next thing you know, it's like, what happened? Like he becomes controlling because he or she's a predator. They're just waiting till you're locked in, you're married. Now I got her. Now I got him. You know. Now I can start looking at, maybe the financial exploitation. I can start getting my names on all the real estate. So you have to be really careful because of domestic violence, domestic abuse comes in all shapes and colors. It's not just about getting punched, getting beat on. It's about, financial manipulation, coercive control. It's about alienation of your friends. Like, I know so many people that call me these beautiful young ladies and really good looking guys that hooked up and settled down, engaged, married, whatever. And they say, like, I had 25, 30 friends. Now that I'm married, she told me I can't see any of my friends anymore. And I don't see them because I love her. And she just says, oh, I just want to spend the first 2 years with you. It's like our honeymoon phase. I just want to have you and I don't want to have you going out with your friends. So it's all about coercive control. So you need to really, really be careful who you start dating. And I'm not saying get a background check, hire a detective, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to, find out his real name. I know so many people that are dating people and say, well, I've been dating him for 2 weeks. I just knew his first name. And I'm like, you're telling me you were beat up and almost killed and you didn't even know this guy's name or address? It's not uncommon. People just fall in love. And when you fall in love, it's your emotions and your heart. It's not your normal mindset. It's your hormones. It's like they're controlling you. So please hear me. Be careful. Make sure you do your due diligence on who this woman or man you're dating. And I'm not saying you have to be paranoid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to live your life proactively. Just think before you act. Just don't. The number one thing I want to say on this to answer this question is this too. You need to not do a rebound relationship. Oh my God, so many people do rebounds and it's the worst. It's the worst. Take a breather. Please don't jump back into the fire. Just
It's
don't. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not even just the rebound. The problem with today's society, and this kind of gets off of the domestic violence, but in relationships in general, people just sleep with people and people get
Yeah.
attached to people because of the sex or making love or the sexual experience, and they don't know each other. You have to have the same
Yeah.
life goals. And like you said, people don't know their names,
Right.
addresses,
Yeah.
and if you guys don't mesh and then you're connected and then you wonder why it's so toxic because you guys don't have the same life goals or you don't know each other, that if
Right.
you just
Yeah,
jump in bed, you would know a little bit like, hey, like this person is code 9, stay away, you know?
exactly. Toxic. It becomes toxicity. It
Yeah,
becomes a toxic relationship.
100%. 100%.
Okay. Well, that's my answer. We're going to flip over
So,
to you now,
okay.
Michelle. So the next one for you is, what message would you want to leave with survivors who are still struggling in silence, that feel like they can't reach out for help?
There's help out there. Like, there's definitely help out there. There's, obviously the foundation people can reach out to. And there's different foundations also, like in shelters for men or for women, for instance, I have a family member currently going through it and, he's scared. He's like, oh, they won't believe me, I'm a guy. And I'm like, go to the shelter, and get on your feet, um, there's definitely great organizations like I'm a survivor of domestic violence Inc. out of Las Vegas that they can reach out to, or they can reach out to many different lines because people are going through with suicide thoughts and it's not just the police that you can reach out to. There's actual organizations with people who care, people like us that have been through it, that know that it can happen to anybody. And we just want to help. So I guess if people, need help, they can email the support at I'm a domestic violence survivor .org, or, you can go ahead with the phone number for sure and we'll put it up at the end. But, we want to help people and there's help out there and they're not alone and they don't have to stay silent. And there's people that will listen to their stories and there's people that will help, but they just have to know that they're worth it. And,
Thank you.
yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
that's what
Thank
I wanna end with is that they're worth it. Everybody's worth it.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Michelle. That was really kind of so on point, spot on. There is help. There's hundreds of nonprofits in the United States, and they're all, on different states. We obviously have multiple states here, but we're
Yeah.
national. Again, our phone number, the hotline is 702-323-4477. Our email is support at I am a survivor of domestic violence.org. Again, support at I am a survivor of domestic violence.org. And our website is I am a survivor of domestic violence.org. And it'll
Mhm.
be all in the credits when the podcast ends. So you can look at that. And thank you for joining us on our first episode. And please follow us on our social media and look for our upcoming episodes because it's going to be really exciting. This is a movement, and we're going to be a national podcast. And we're looking to have guests in the future come on and join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and keep watching.
Thank you so much for joining us on this first episode of I'm a Survivor of Domestic Violence Inc. We hope today's conversation gave you a deeper understanding of the importance of survivor stories and the impact we can all have by raising awareness about domestic violence.
If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please remember you are not alone. There are resources available to help, and you deserve to live a life free from fear and harm. We're grateful to have had this time to share this powerful journey with you. We'll be back soon with more survivor stories and discussions. In the meantime, we encourage you to listen, share, and continue to raise your voice for change. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay strong, stay compassionate, and keep listening.